Start your day
with Julian Clegg
on BBC Radio Solent.
So, were you watching last night?
Take 5 Chinese teachers.
Baby, listen to me.
Add 50 British teenagers.
The size of a bee.
I don't get it.
Could this be a formula for disaster?
Yeah. Just use your brain.
What brain?
No talking, no questions now.
Chinese School on BBC Two and BBC Two HD.
So it was on last night, and if you didn't catch it, what would you think if you were told that from tomorrow your youngsters will begin school at 7 a.m, have 12-hour days with 2 meal breaks, and clean their own classroom? That's exactly what happened to 50 Year 9 students at a Hampshire secondary school as part of this new documentary that aired last night. It's part 1 of 3 parts, by the way. Are Our Kids Tough Enough? Chinese School. It's Bohan School in Lipbook, by the way, so if you're living there or you've one of the youngsters, you'll know all about it. Let's get some thoughts on this. Joining me now, Steve Curran, Dr. Steve Curran, from AE Tuition, where he tutors students from across the south. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, Julian.
So, what did you think? Because my only criticism was I'm worried it's going to turn into a debate about the teachers and not about the pupils.
Yes, I think they chose to put these teachers with Year 9 students, which would obviously be quite entertaining in the sense that those children are often the most challenging children in a secondary school, because obviously they're going through puberty, many changes are happening, they don't want to be embarrassed, they find change quite difficult, and it takes quite a long time to establish trust between those students. So, these teachers were there just for 4 weeks. Now, how do you build up a relationship, a meaningful one?
Comparing us with China, hours in class per day. In the UK, 5.5 hours. In Shanghai, 9.8 hours. Start of the school day, 7:30 in China, 9 o'clock in the UK. Hours of homework per week, aged 15, 4.9 hours in the UK. Wait for this. 13.8 hours in China. Days at school per year in the UK 153, in China 190. Spending on school pupils just short of 60,000 in the UK, just short of 30,000 in China, and so it goes on. I mean, but the question is, does it make a difference?
Well, I think the expectations are very different. It's a different culture. And we could certainly learn a great deal, I believe, from these more traditional approaches. And to some extent, I think people in the UK see education as a right. Yeah. I think that was something that came across in the programme, and Chinese people see it as a privilege. And I think our students perhaps don't understand the value of education often until later. I mean, some of them did when they were talking about their futures, but many of them really felt that they were perhaps cushioned in this society and wouldn't really feel under the kind of pressures that Chinese students would feel under.
2 things that crossed my mind as I was watching it, 2 moments. One was the Chinese teacher explaining trigonometry, where she stood at the front of the class and basically put lots of things on the whiteboard very quickly, and everyone was writing it down. It was almost by rote. Then they met up with one of their maths teachers off-piece, so to speak, who's just come back into school to do something, and then he started to explain, sine over hypotenuse, etc., and then they got it. That's quite a fundamental part of the difference, maybe, between Chinese and British teaching, isn't it?
Yes, I think a lot of it is, to some extent, stylistic. I mean, we have been affected by progressive methodologies in Britain, and many of those methodologies are very useful. And I think even the Chinese teachers, in the end, were forced to try and work in groups with them to try and understand the children more and to build relationships. So I think traditional methodologies are good. It needs to be balanced against other kind of methodologies. I mean, I'm a great believer that if you put the fundamentals in a primary school, and that's where I think the problems really occur in Britain, more than in the secondary schools, actually. So I'd be interested to see what they do in primary schools and how that would affect primary
That's
school
the next
children.
series. And then the other thing, just to mention, PE, where basically PE counts as part of
Yes.
your exam, so you have to do PE. And this extraordinary scene where they all have to run round the whatever pitch it is
Yes.
within 3.27 minutes, and of course half the pupils can't pull it off. And there's one lad who's in
Yes.
tears, who's
Yes.
good at science but can't run. Have the Chinese got a good idea there, or is it a bad idea?
Well, I think the taking out of all competitive elements from school is bad. But to make it solely a competition would also be, in my opinion, wrong. It's interesting that particular lad later on succeeded and was the only one that could solve a puzzle really quickly.
Yes.
And I think the other teachers, the British teachers, had to make the point that he, in a sense, had other gifts.
Well, it's part 1 of 3. I'm sure we'll be talking about it some more next week and the week after, because obviously it's based in our part of the world. Well done to everyone at Bowen School and Liphook who got involved in that. And look, Steve, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you very much,
Good to see you, Dr. Steve Curran there on BBC Radio Solent.